Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Judy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mrs. Gatsby.
Yes. All right, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for the September 16th regular meeting and October 15th, the board work session.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Are there any corrections noted? No? Will you call the roll?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mrs. Gatsby.
Yes. Motion carried. Recommendations and communications?
None.
None tonight. Okay. We'll move right on to reports and public participation. Is Andrew here tonight?
We're going to do a high school building report here
Okay.
first.
All right. We'll do that. Mr. Coughlin.
Mr. Coughlin, come on down.
Let me drive that ship.
I'm going to drive the.
So, spoke with some staff members before coming here, and we were just trying to figure out what we wanted to highlight for the school year, and some of our staff leaders suggested that we bring up some stuff we've been doing with a company called Focus 3. So, Focus 3, and this is something we're doing with our as part of our PBIS programming. Focus 3 is a company based out of Columbus. It's an advisory firm that provides consulting and training resources to help organizations develop leaders, strengthen culture, and empower the folks that work there. So it was founded by a gentleman named Tim Kite. Some of their concepts actually gained quite a bit of notoriety with the 2014 OSU National Championship team. Because Tim Kite was actually working with Urban Meyer with the team as one of their not an assistant, but I think they called him like the culture advisor or something to that effect. Since then, they've worked with many different businesses. They actually have a sector for athletics, a sector for the business world, and one for education that they've recently started. So they work with a lot of schools, especially in Central Ohio. So we've been working with them since 2021. We started a book study back then on some of the concepts. There was a book called Above the Line that was authored by Urban Meyer, and Tim Kite co-authored that book. So we started back in 2021. We did a book study with around 25 teachers participated. And it was great feedback from them. They enjoyed the concept. So once we knew they really liked what they were hearing, we decided to bring the company in, and we did a few steps that I'll kind of go over as we move through. This is part of our PBIS programming. At the high school, when I first got there, we were doing some token economy stuff with the kids. They could earn tickets and buy things. And we just realized that we weren't seeing much of an impact at the high school level. So we moved towards more intrinsic rewards, like recognizing kids for what they're doing versus giving them a ticket. Because one, they lose them to buy something. To fund something that high schoolers want is pretty expensive. They don't want the stickers and the pencils as much. So we got tired of spending thousands of dollars on candy bars. So we went a different direction. So I'm just going to go over some of the concepts. There's a lot. I'm going to try to highlight the big stuff and try to keep this around 10 minutes because I'm pretty passionate about it. So I can talk here forever. So you need to hit your gavel to clap.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you the 3 minutes I was looking.
So
you have 13.
when we're talking about the Above the Line book, the line is right here. What they talk about is anything that goes above the line is something that you're doing with discipline. Anything below the line is a default behavior. So when he talks about discipline, they really want to distinguish between what we talk about discipline at school. It isn't somebody getting in trouble for an action. Discipline is working on getting better every day by constantly consistently applying standards and principles to your life. Discipline is not about something what someone does to you, it's about something you choose for yourself. So when you're making decisions, when you're taking actions, you want to make sure that they are intentional, purposeful, and skillful. What we get sucked into a lot is, especially in the moment when it's a heat of whatever it is, in a classroom, on a field, just in work, a lot of times that behavior, we fall into the default mode when you're talking about we're acting impulsively, we're on autopilot and resistant. They define all those terms, but the main point is the ones up top is something that has been thought through. The ones on the bottom is something that is just a reaction. So this is kind of their big selling point when they're coming to talk to you. So back in 2014, the football team all had wristbands that said E+R=O. We've actually made wristbands for ourselves, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. What the R factor is that it's a device that you use to make sure you're living that disciplined life, that you're living above the line. It's a way to take certain steps so you're making sure any decisions you make aren't impulsive, that they're thought through. So this is what E+R=O stands for. An event plus response equals an outcome. So in everyday life, you're faced with different events, thousands of events every day. Your response is what determines what the outcome of any event is. They talk about building the skill for your response because there are going to be different events that are different levels of severity, different levels of complexity. Your response has to be built to a level that it can meet the level of an event. So a negative event, a negative response is going to equal a negative outcome. A negative event, a positive, powerful response could end up in a more positive outcome. What we've talked about a lot in our sessions with each other or with the staff is what Focus 3 wants you to focus on is your response, but it's about controlling your own 20 square feet. In my own 20 square feet, I have complete control over what I'm doing. That's just a theoretical number that they throw out. But outside my 20 square feet, I have, what am I looking for? I have an influence over it, but I can't directly affect. So my response to an event, that's all that I control. That's my 20 square feet. Because I'm mumbling a little bit, I'm going to go on to, this is Tim Kite. It's just a short video that he has a lot of these that we share with staff. He's very powerful, very passionate. I think just kind of hearing his energy for it will give you an understanding.
Many of you are probably familiar with the equation E+R=O, event plus response equals outcome, that we teach, that we do workshops around. I just want to remind everyone that E+R=O is mindset first. And it's very important to apply and learn the skill. So give you the E+R mindset, and I'm going to give it to you in the first. I don't control events. There are a lot of things that happen in life, events and circumstances. I do not control them. Events will influence me. I can influence events, but I do not control them. Second part of the mindset is that my response is my choice. That can influence situations, events will influence me to try to think in a certain way. My response is always my choice. Number 3 is that I learn by the quality of my response. But what I get is determined by the power that I choose. If I want a better outcome, you choose a better response. But number 4 is that it's my job to get good at it. People around me may or may not practice or understand it, but I understand that the better I manage my life, the better experience I get. I do control events. I do control my R. But it's the way it's working. My job is to get good at it. Many of you are probably familiar with.
Okay, so why do we choose R factor? Our response is the only thing we control. That goes back to the 20 square feet. We can't control how that student does on the test. We want to influence it, but we can't control. So once we see a negative outcome on a test, what's our response to that? Are we just going to say it's the student's fault, or are we going to find a way to circle back and make sure that they know that content before we move forward? It impacts the future and it's forward thinking. There are three types of R's, three different types of responses. There's a proactive response, there's a situational response, and there's a reflective response. So the proactive is you know something's going to occur. You can plan ahead and know this is going to happen. So when that event does occur, you've thought it through and you can deal with it. In the situational response, that's where you got to really hone in those skills, and we'll go over those here in a second. It's a formula for success. We talk a lot in our sessions. We're actually doing a second book study on the same book with a different group of teachers who now want to be a part. And we talk about this isn't just for work. This is life. We all talk about how great our responses are at work, but then we get home and it all goes out the window because at that point we're tired and they get the worst of us. But we talk about how this is for everything. And another thing I haven't mentioned, when you work with Focus 3, like this is for the adults. Now, eventually we want to teach it to the kids, but we need to make sure that the adults know it first and they're living it. Then we can move on to teach the kids some of these elements. Like he just said, it's logical, simple, and fundamental truth. It provides clarity. It's still going to be hard to do when you're responding to certain tough situations. It's still tough, but it provides you a method for working through it. Removes a negative emotion for decisions. I said sometimes because it's always going to slip through. And improved behavior leads to improved results. So here are the skills you have to work through when you're working with on your response. So in any situation, the first thing you have to do is press pause. That could be any different length. If it's an in-the-moment decision you have to make, sometimes that pause can't be very long because that decision needs to be made. Sometimes you have time to reflect before you make the decision. So after you pause, you have to get your mind right. You have to make sure you're in the right headspace to make whatever that decision is in responding. The third is you have to move forward and step up and make that decision. So whatever, you've pressed pause, you've gotten your mind in a good positive place, now you have to take action. Once you take action, it's not always going to work exactly how you thought it through. So in that moment, you need to adjust and adapt. We talk about the classroom. A month ago, end of the day, we had no electricity in our school. We still had students in the building. You have to, educators know you adjust and adapt and you move forward. The fifth one is pretty interesting to me. It's make a difference. Once you've made a decision, what you need to realize is your R is now somebody else's E. So my response is now causing the event for somebody else. So I need to realize what impact I'm making to everybody around me. Is it a positive impact? Is it a negative impact? Then the sixth one is just building skill. This is all a skill set. So this is not something you just do once. You continually work on this process to get better at it. Called their toolbox. So the R factor is one of the big cells and one of the things I was very interested about, but it's also just about having a better culture in our building. In all honesty, I feel like we have already had a great culture in our building. I'm very happy with where we are as a staff. And not that we are in a negative place, but I'm very happy where we are now. I feel this is one of my strengths. I'm not the curriculum person. I tell the teachers that's your specialty. This is why I'm here, to make sure as a whole we're doing well. Which also reflects my two new assistant principals who have also taken on roles that have made life amazing at our building this year. So I just want to make sure I have a shout out to them. I'm sure they're mad that I did that. But when we talk culture, it's not, and I'm going to give you guys all some posters here in a little bit that we are using. It's not a poster on the wall. It can't just be something up that we walk by. It has to be what we're living. And then when they talk about the culture journey, a big part of this is we're building leaders. But if you're a leader, you're on some type of journey. Leaders don't just stand still. They have to be moving, or they're not leading. They're just in one place. And we've talked a lot about complacency is just not an option at our school. 4.5 stars, we're extremely excited, but we all want 5. So complacency is not an option. Oh, didn't even know those were on there, so we don't need those. All right, so what is the purpose of culture? It is to engage hearts and minds, it's to align our efforts, it's to energize behavior needed for your strategy. And we'll kind of talk about something here in a second called the performance pathway that'll touch on some of those. But some of the big things about culture that we've been really talking about and trying to drive in is it isn't about making people feel good. Does it hopefully at the end of the day make people feel better about coming to work? Absolutely. But that's not the purpose of culture. The purpose of culture is to do these three things: engage our hearts and minds, align our effort, and energize our behavior for our strategy. One of the other big but something that especially some of our team leaders have taken to heart is when you're thinking about a culture, the old adage, if you permit it, you promote it. So we've really talked about this here. If we're letting certain things go in our classrooms, be it from teachers, be it from ourselves, be it from students, if we're just allowing those things to happen, and we know they're happening, we're promoting that they're allowed to happen. Vaping was a big issue last year. Our vape detectors went off more than, I don't even want to bring it up. This year, once a day, if it does occur. I mean, there have been weeks where we've had less than 5, and that's a lot of what some of these two have implemented in the building this year. So we are not permitting it, we're not promoting it, it's just not something we're going to allow. All right, performance pathway. So when you talk about the leaders drive a culture, culture influences the behavior of the staff, and the behavior are the things that lead to the results. Good behavior leads to good results. Poor behavior leads to poor results. Then you see the little circle, they call it the flywheel. Poor behavior leads to a poor culture, which then reinforces the poor behavior. Positive behavior leads to a positive culture, reinforces positive behavior. Positive leaders influence culture a positive way. What they want to drive in more than anything is it's not strategies that produce results. It's the behavior and the culture of the building. If you have A+ strategy, B- behavior, you're going to end up with a B-. So we aren't always looking to fix strategy. Once we get the culture, the behaviors of our staff, our kids down, then we'll look at implementing new strategies that help to drive up to that 5-star rating that we're looking for. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to make sure I hit here. We already talked about this. Culture is not built on what you proclaim, it's built on what you practice, promote, and implement. When we talk about our culture, we talk about alignment, making sure we're on the same page. We've had a lot of discussions actually since the beginning of the year about, we have a lot of common classes between teachers, but they don't look the same. One can be drastically different from the other, and that's not good for any of us if they're in one class, or if they're one teacher's class that it looks this way, completely different than the other. So we talked about is they're coming to align more in what they're doing. That doesn't mean, so next slide, doesn't mean it all has to look exactly the same. We aren't asking for uniformity, we're just asking for alignment in what we're doing. That's in the classroom, that's in the building, that's making sure we're on the same page with the expectations we have for students. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but we all need to be moving in the same direction. So now, what direction is that? This is where I'll give you some nice posters. So what we've done, this kind of goes back to some of the philosophies of PBIS. Most schools have something they call a matrix, where they talk about the different behaviors and the different parts of a school. This is what we developed with Focus 3. It's called a cultural blueprint. And it's just what we are aiming as a staff, with our students, with everybody involved, that we want to make sure we all have the same expectations and goals as we move forward. So I guess when you go back to the last slide, we actually know which way that arrow is actually pointed. So I just have kind of the overview on here. But as you look through this packet, it actually breaks down each expectation into like almost a definition. So on the left, this is what we want. We want to build community, we want to embrace growth, we want to take ownership. We want all of our staff to do that, we want students to do that. And then it shows how we're going to do it and then what we hope the outcome will be. So that's the culture that we're shooting for. These are some of the steps of how we want to do it. Here's one thing I want to show you, just because I kind of like it, and then I'll be off the stage here. But when the Focus 3 came to Mount Vernon, her name is Jen Lawson. She used to be assistant superintendent at Marion, then got out to work with Focus 3. She said, you know, in business, they talk about BCD, and I'll explain what that stands for here in a second. But at schools, we usually don't bring this up because teachers don't take these thoughts or ideas very well. So what BCD stands for is blaming, complaining, and defending. They feel like those are behaviors that ruin a culture, that stop progress. They've actually recently added a G for gossiping. But, you know, we felt like we were in a good place with our staff at the time, so we said, no, we need to bring this up. And through our discussions, what we've determined is we're going to allow some BCD. There's some parameters. You can BCD to one person. So a lot of us in our staff have BCD partners. You have, when it begins, you have no more than 5 minutes. And at the end of 5 minutes, you need to come up with a solution. If you can't come up with a solution, or at least start thinking that process through, then you're not allowed to do the other things. And it's funny, our staff will come to me and talk about, well, we just had a BCD session. Now here's what we're thinking about doing for this particular area. One other element that I forgot to talk about earlier. Talking about leaders. Leaders are not defined by roles or titles. Leaders are defined by the trust you have in those people who are your working. So that's why we're trying to, like, everybody in our building is a leader. We aren't the only leaders. Teachers are leaders of classrooms, students are leaders of each other. And the way we earn that leadership responsibility or role is by earning the trust of those around us. So that's one of our big focuses. So, any questions?
Yes, my hearing is going a little bit. What does the D stand for?
Defending in action, yeah.
Okay.
Making excuses.
You see, I just did.
We found a solution, we're good.
Okay. Have you found that as a whole, the staff has bought into all of this?
A lot more than I would have ever imagined. I'm
That's
very
wonderful.
excited about it. I mean, we had, it's going to be a generalization, we had some staff members who may have been considered fairly negative at times, who have even come to us and been, one, grateful for, we've started this process, but even taken leadership roles. And we have, I think, 5 staff now who are trained by Focus 3 to train our staff, so we don't have to keep bringing them in.
Oh, good.
And some of those staff are actually better, so it's been very positive.
Yeah, my mother had a saying that said, change for change's sake is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Change for a purpose is good. So I'm really glad that this is a positive thing.
And I think that we had a good amount of trust from the staff before we started it. So now we're not trying to nothing needs fixed. We're just trying to make it better. Complacency is not an option, and they all feel the same.
Have you found with the children, is there any improvement in attendance?
We haven't rolled this out to students yet. We want to
Okay.
make sure the staff has a full understanding of it before we take
I
that
see.
next step.
Okay.
Because we want those students to be able to come to the staff. Now, has there been a change in attendance? I don't know numbers yet, but again, I'll point back to the gentleman over here who has taken on attendance, and he's had more attendance intervention team meetings this year already than we've had in the past 3 years. He's been on top of it from the beginning, so hopefully just holding them to that expectation and having meetings with those families, having discussions. We've got alarm clocks that we've given to kids just to try to get any excuse off the table that you need to be at school. So have we seen an impact yet? Not necessarily, but I anticipate one coming.
Hopefully it'll impact graduation rate.
Absolutely, yep. we don't like where that was. I agree completely.
Has Focus 3 worked, other districts where they've gotten now down to the student level? Have you gotten a chance to see what that looks like?
Yeah, if you go to the Dublins, the Hilliards, a lot of the suburb schools, the kids all, the great thing is kids kind of all speak the same language with some of these concepts. So when you're addressing a behavior, you're not necessarily just focused on the behavior, you're focused on the response, but also how are we going to fix that? So one thing we have done is any kid who's suspended out of school, they come back, they have to have a meeting. Mr. Graham's in there, our social workers in there, some people of our, we call it the above the line team now versus the PBIS team. They're in there and they discuss the event that occurred and how their response led to the outcome. And now going back, if I was in this situation again, how can I respond differently for a better outcome? So just having that language with the students, so when you're addressing those behaviors, you have a common language, I think. Hopefully,
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Now we'll go back to monthly reports. How's that?
Good.
Andrew, I did not see Andrew or April. I see Mr. Lang.
Anything from Mike's world?
Anything from your corner?
Not too much. I just want to, just let the board know that I appreciate the opportunity to start negotiations next month. We're working hard on that. Both sides of us checking things out, so that we can go into this with an open mind and bargain fairly.
Great.
Thank you.
No public participation.
Board items for discussion?
Not at this
None
time.
All right.
We do have a number of additions and deletions since we sent out the agenda on Friday. All Out Sports, AC Twirlers are in there under Section 9. Section 10, we do have North Central ESC. And in Section 11B, we have a substitute teacher addition. And we did have one, we were missing a 50-50 split on a supplemental contract. Thank you for bringing that to us. And so we checked into that. And so our 50-50s add up to 1. So those are some additions and deletions to the agenda.
All right, moving on to superintendent's reports.
I do have some information. I'm going to pull up a different piece here. But just some things to kind of share. As I know we just met recently here for a board work session, but I thought of a couple things I would just bring up. And some of this some of this I think it's just important to let our public know. And so first off, just a quick little facility advisory committee update. We've met 5 times since June. We've done facility overviews where we've really taken a close look at age, size, location, demographics, enrollments. We've looked at future housing initiatives and enrollment projections. We've looked at drivers and obstacles. We've had staff go through educational visioning. We've looked at the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission's master plan and replace to renovate. We've participated in building tours of all of our buildings. So all that to say, it's been a really good 5 months because we've had a meeting once a month. I will say we did come up in our last meeting with answered a very essential question. And the question was, should Mount Vernon City Schools consider significant renovations and or building replacements? And again, looking at all of the information, we polled our group of over 25 folks, and we could have answered, yes, we need to consider significant facility improvements, or we could have said, no, you know what, our current facilities are serving us just fine right now. And we have a lot of folks in our committee who are really tied into their buildings, and there's a lot of pride, and we so appreciate that, but we really wanted to pay close attention to the word significant. We have done a great job in this district keeping our buildings up and running. Our teachers do a great job in the classrooms. Our custodians do a great job. I mean, we really take care of really, and a lot of times, old buildings that were built for a century ago. But with all that being said, significant wasn't just kind of dressing it up and making it look pretty. Is this really serving our students as we move into the future? And we've had 5 meetings to really dig into that. And interestingly enough, 100% of those that were at our 5th meeting said, yes, we need some significant facility improvements. Now that could be, in some cases, renovating facilities, or in some cases even new facilities. But this was an important milestone for us, because as we go down, if the majority of the group would have said, you know what we have is just fine, we could have found ourselves stopping there and saying, okay. But it wasn't that. It was, hey, what's next? And so what's next is we're looking at extending our Facility Advisory Committee's recommendation timeline from January of 2025 to May of 2025. Why is that significant? Because our thought process going into this was that this committee was going to bring to the board their thoughts about a master facility planning process, with the hopes that, whatever process came out, whether it was to do nothing or to do something, we would be in line with some sort of a potential May levy if it came to that. What we found out was we need more work. And so while we've done a lot of work, it was pretty clear to the group, and these are very passionate individuals, that we need to spend a little bit more time. We need to answer a few more questions. We need to really be prepared to go to our community and share what we believe is really, really important. So to do that, we moved that timeline from January to May. So the committee will now work from November all the way through till April. April is now our new timeline to share with our community what we're thinking. May would be that timeline where, after hearing from our community, we would bring back to the board some things for consideration. Now that would mean that if we were really meant to move forward and to potentially build or renovate and need funds to do that, which we would, right? We would probably be looking at some sort of a bond issue next November and not this spring. We did develop 4 subcommittees. I won't read through these for you, but the 4 subcommittee work to get down into the nitty-gritty are facilities and the preservation committee. That'll focus on what we've already done, current assessments of our building, renovation sites, surveys, working with architects. We also realize we got some wonderful old buildings. We got to make sure we take care of those and treat those accordingly as well. Educational vision and programs, that group's responsible for aligning district's goals and vision to the facility planning process. It ensures that existing schools support modern teaching methods and we have room to teach. I think the building tours were so impactful to realize that many of our buildings were doing certain types of small group instruction or even one-on-one tutoring in the most remote areas, even closets in some cases, because it's just, we've run out of space. Student Impact and Enrollment Committee will analyze our student enrollment trends. They'll develop redistricting plans and manage transition of students due to school closures and openings, trying to work towards minimal disruption, but also transporting all the students that we have. And finally, the Finance Committee and Engagement Committee handles the financial aspects of a project like this, funding options, managing bonds, and communicating with our community throughout the whole process to really maintain a financial transparency. So we extended the timeline. We've developed our committee work. We're going to go to work on that here in November. We're going to take December off. We'll come back together in January with the hopes of January, February, and March really starting to pull this thing together to share with our community and ultimately to you. So I know I shared that with the board during our work session, but I thought it was important to share it in open session so that people know the work is continuing. And if the community wants to find out more about it, we have posted every single PowerPoint presentation. All of our meeting agendas are online. Go to our district, go to facility planning. tab, and you can see all of that information there. I do want to pay some positive vibes. I know you heard a little bit about what the high school is doing in the PBIS area. We did have 2 of our buildings who received the Bronze Award from the state. That's a nice milestone. It means we're doing some really good work at both Dan Emmett and Wigan Street. There is an application process, and you have to demonstrate the kind of work that's going on. I think when the high school starts to take their program down to the student level and really start to engage there, I have no doubt that you're going to find them up in this kind of an award recognition as well. So congratulations to Dan Emmett and Wigan Street. This is exciting, and I say this is exciting because we have some amazing PE teachers at the elementary level. And working with Knox County United Way, they came up with an amazing idea called All Kids Bikes. And so basically what's going to happen is the United Way, with donors from our community, have purchased 3 sets of bikes that you see right there. And all 3 of our special education or our physical education teachers will take these to the schools that they represent. We're going to teach all kindergarten and first grade students how to ride a bike. And why this hits home to me in a very timely way is I just spent some time with my grandson in South Carolina, and I was trying to teach him how to ride a bike, and he's still on training wheels. And, I keep pushing him, and it's just such a lifelong kind of a physical thing that is exciting that we can bring that right here. There's a short little 1-minute video I want to just play for you to kind of give you a sense for what this is about.
All Kids Bike is on a mission to teach every child in America how to ride a bike in kindergarten PE class. Today, kids are spending an average of over 7 hours per day on trains, and the rate of child increased of 22.4% in 2020. Shockingly, now, more than ever, it is crucial for kids to start the path of a healthy lifestyle. The ability to ride a bike develops physical and mental well-being, which is the solution to reversing these statistics. By teaching to ride a bike, we are preventing the development and creation of a lifelong skill. The All Bike Kindergarten Ride Program is a rolling story graphs, and practical training, which is everything needed to teach how to successfully riding a bike in 8 lessons. The All Kids Bike program has a special bike school of 7 teaching thousands of kids to ride with the dedicated donors for every child. For more information, please visit our website, allkidsbike.org.
So what was really cool about that was you saw the kids just using their feet, right? So the pedals actually fold in, and it becomes a balance bike. And so basically the kids will sit, and they'll get their feet going, then they'll pick their feet up, and they balance. And then they get more comfortable with that. And then they introduce the pedals and just introduce the balance. I can say I was able to get to that with my grandson, and the first time he went 50 yards down the street, he wrecked at the end, but he got up and was like, I did it, and it was really, really kind of special. And so for all of these kids, some who don't even have bikes, just to learn that skill, and it's our PE teachers at the primary level who have really done that. And I got to say a big thanks to the United Way. They're having a special event coming up. If I can get to the next slide. There we go. So, whoops. We sent this little invitation out to all kindergarten students, but realized first grade students are also getting trained as well. But the United Way had us send this out to all kindergarten parents, inviting them to an event that's going to be this coming Wednesday, the 23rd, at the YMCA down, across from Old Siemens area. Dinner will be provided. Children are invited to bring their bike helmet, and they'll be decorating it. And they're going to really kind of share with parents what this looks like. in the process. So I hope to be able to bring you some really cute videos or pictures, just as you saw there of our Mount Vernon youngsters, quite frankly, learning how to ride a bike. So I think it's really a neat thing.
And how great that they can motivate each other. You know, when you're trying to help a child, sometimes they're afraid, but in front of their peers, they're going to be fine.
I tried to steal the curriculum before I saw my grandchild picture. I wasn't just, I just want to. That's probably how we all learn.
That's how we learn.
There actually is a curriculum and there's a thought process, so swimming might be the same way. Maybe we'll have to do that. Whoops. Also wanted just to kind of share in this district update, coming up here in November, of course, is Veterans Day, and we're so appreciative of our veterans. And I know that Darren Prince at the middle school, you know, this is a special day for him, not only as an active member, but the idea of Veterans Day. So the middle school is sending out this information. Thought I would mention it tonight. They're announcing their 4th annual Veterans Day breakfast on November 12th. The theme this year is serving those who have served us. So they're inviting all veterans from our community to join us. Students who invite a veteran will have a special opportunity to share a meal with them. Over the years, they've served over 1,500 veterans. So there is on the right-hand side there a way to RSVP. And so that should be a neat event. I would be remiss if I didn't say that we're bringing something back. We will send out a notice prior to November 12th, but they're bringing back the 21-gun salute. Just noise. It's not nothing but noise. But, you know, sometimes you hear something like that, you get a little bit worried. So they will be doing that with a 7-person volley. Finally, I had an interesting opportunity this morning. So it's been a challenge by Dan Emmett. And Noose Road there has been a challenge. It's still being worked on. But they did lay asphalt finally. And so they now have what they call their base coat, and it can now be driven on. They're still doing some work, but they're opening it up now during our dismissal and our arrival time. By doing that, we have now been able to kind of get off the grass where we've been parking and park in new areas that they've helped create. And we're taking our parent drop-off out of the front lot, taking it behind. So if you look right here, this is the modular in back of Dan Emmett. This has all been concreted back here now with new concrete areas at staff parking. So we're now able to kind of pull in here. We loop around. You can get about 4 cars in here at the cones. Kids get dropped off. They go straight to the playground. The cars just turn around and exit. So we have a lot more of a bandwidth to get more cars in and not clogging up the roadways. So I was able to be out there this morning and watch them, and the staff did a really, really good job. Margie sent out reminders all weekend. We still had a few people out front, but we'll just keep reminding them. And all of a sudden, this will start to become just secondhand. And it's going to provide a much safer pickup and drop-off location. So I wanted to share that. Any questions about that quick update? Even though I know we had just a work session, but I thought those were notable for you and quite frankly for our audience.
Just an appreciation to the staff and the parents for putting up with it. I haven't had any complaints.
Yeah.
I know it's been a challenge and they've done a good job.
Yeah, the bigger, not only is the challenge just in getting people there dropped off, because it was so challenging on New Street, we had to do a staggered release. Mm-hmm. And so that really meant we were losing some educational time. So we would, we started releasing kids at 3 o'clock and systematically, every 10, 15 minutes we would release kids. Well, those kiddos that would get released at 3 o'clock, we're almost losing a half hour of instruction per day. So we're hoping certainly we can start to get that back on track. And safety, of course, is a big deal.
Excuse me, question. Is that the same area where the buses drop off the children?
So the buses now will drop off in front.
They'll stay in the
They'll
front.
stay in the front, so really the only things in that front small loop should be only buses now.
Right, okay,
Parents would be in the back.
thank you.
Really only a couple things for board approval tonight in this section. The participation of a few home and community school students, and then a memorandum of understanding for Highland schools. So not only have we kind of gotten all of Knox County schools that want to use Energy Fieldhouse as a reunification site, hopefully we never have to use it as a reunification site, but in the event we did, it's just become a real community asset. Highland really liked what we were bringing to the table and all of the cooperation. They asked if they could be a part of a memorandum to join us as well. And so we were more than happy to include them as part of it, but we wanted to do so in a memorandum.
All right, I would entertain a motion for community school participation and the MOU for Highland.
So move, oh, you got me.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, would you call the roll?
Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes. Motion carried. All right, moving on to curriculum instruction and Dr. Bennett.
Okay, I just would like to focus on the research brief. There were lots of good articles, but a lot of them were redundant from other things that we've read. And this was an interesting research study that was done by the American Education Research Association. And it was entitled Opportunities, Not Poverty Alone, Predict Later Life Success for Children. And they actually did a study, as you can see, with 814 children, and they followed these children for 26 years. I just thought it was an incredible study, and they included factors such as the instructional quality of the classroom, participation in after-school activities like sports, music lessons, clubs, and opportunities at home, child care, and in the neighborhood from birth through high school. So what they discovered, that most high-income students, their experiences, they had at least 6 opportunities for outside extracurricular types of events, including like music lessons or whatever. However, nearly 2/3 of low-income households, those children had 0 or maybe at most 1 opportunity. 2/3 of those children. So they followed that through and found out that the opportunity gap appears to be even more important than and powerful predictor of future attainment and earnings than childhood poverty alone, which I thought was just really interesting because that's something that we would have a chance to impact. And they found that when low-income students moved from 0 to even 4 opportunities, for example, there were the odds of graduating from a 4-year college increased from 10% to 50%, and their annual salaries by age 26 by approximately $10,000. So between birth and high school, even 1 additional opportunity was very meaningful, reported the co-author of the report. And it just made me think, you know, we have so many opportunities for our kids, and we have tried to always meet, if there's a financial need, to have a way to meet that need so that the kids could still participate. And I think we're doing the right thing, but if there are parents that are listening or students, just encourage your kids to get involved, to find something. And I mean, we've even started with bowling, you know, so in E-Club, right? So there's just so many opportunities. And if kids can even just get in one thing where they get a support group, where they make friends, where they can learn to excel at something, it just makes a tremendous difference in their attitudes towards school, in their attendance, and we know now that it also makes an impact in how they finish after high school. how they continue their life skills. So I just thought that was a great idea.
I think it is really good. Even eliminating fees this year will open up opportunities.
I thought of that.
We might even find ourselves looking at some of these extracurricular fees. Even though we've really tried to bring them down, we still may have some work we can do there because, like you say, opportunities.
Well, and I know with trips even, when kids can go on a trip, we always say, if there's a financial need, that there are people in our community. Our community is so caring and
Very giving.
wonderful. Very giving. So they make a way for kids to participate.
One item for board approval in this section tonight, it's the high school varsity softball team who will be heading to Florida. Again, they have to find their transportation to get down there, but once they're there, there's housing that the young ladies stay at. Chaperones, we have 2 lady chaperones that will stay with those young ladies in the house. The coaches, which we have a number of male coaches, they'll stay at a different location. We transport them once we're down there, but it's always proven to be a kind of a nice thing that they do. It kind of propels us into the start of another year.
Well, being at Destin would encourage.
Yeah.
The white sugar sand beaches.
Yes.
Hopefully hopefully they're kind of back
They're
on
done,
solid
yeah.
footing by then, right?
I would entertain a motion for the varsity softball team trip.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll second.
Workman. Second, Mr. Workman, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, would you call the roll?
Mr. Rolladye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, moving on to fiscal services. No items for information, and we have 4 for board approval. Ms. Ward?
The financial report is there. If you want to take a look at the second page, you'll see our cash balances. If you can scroll back out a little bit. So there you go.
Scroll out.
Well, so you can see the whole thing, yeah. There you go. So that's where we stand now with all of our cash, including our investments. You can see the investments at US Bank there. We have the regular account with almost $7 million, and then the insurance account, $2.5 million. The next page then is our, call it the SM2 report, where we look at the revised forecast. The November forecast that has to be submitted to the state, obviously, I'll be bringing that to you next month. I'm working on it now. As I think Mike brought up about negotiations, we won't have any, obviously, final numbers in there, so we'll have to make some assumptions when we do that. But other than that, you can see we're pretty much where we need to be. We've collected half of our taxes. This is the second half, so it's a little bit lower than the first half, but we're at 35% on all revenue, and then on the expenditures, we should be at 25, and we're 24.42, so right about where we think we should be for now. There is the investment report. We're at $238,000 after only 3 months, so that's pretty good. And you can see then which funds those are all going into. They are split up by those different accounts. The rest of the report is just a list of the funds and what their balances are. We have a contract with the East Central Ohio ESC to send them money out of our foundation every month rather than sending them a check. We're not paying them the whole, they're billing us for other school districts and for our school district. And what we've been doing in the past is paying the whole bill. And then twice a year, we get the money back from the other districts. So we're putting the money out ahead of time. And they gave us the option this year to either not pay it at all, which I didn't feel right about, and just wait until we got the money back, or we could give them a little bit of money each month. So we set up to send it comes out each month, so $120,000 for the year, and it'll automatically come out of our foundation. And then when we get the bill for the other districts, then we get that money back and then we'll catch up, do like a true up. So this is just an agreement with them.
Just to refresh the board on this, East Central Ohio ESC, they are the educational entity for the CRC, which is out of the Village Network. So they have about 16 to 18 beds out there that a lot of times those are court appointed, and they'll come from all over the state and they are educated there. Well, we're the resident where the CRC resides. So we have to be kind of the flow through for those kinds of things. So that's what this is really pertaining to.
Appropriations, we had to update those. If you want to scroll down a little bit to the lower part of that, you can see the last column there. Let me make it a little smaller, Bill. So the appropriations in the next to the last column are the ones that we're changing.
This column here.
Yeah, if you want to scroll back up, you can see those are funds with 500s and there's one with the 400. Those are federal and state grants. And the reason that we're now making some changes to those appropriations is that A, we found out how much money we're getting this year finally. Usually they send it in, but we have to go through a process. And B, some of the monies weren't spent last year, so we have to roll it over and appropriate them again for this year. So that's just showing the changes between last year and this year. And I think other than the donations, yeah, we've got 3 donations there, all to Pleasant Street. One from Owens Corning with 3 large boxes full of book bags filled with supplies. One from the Pleasant Street PTO, $200 for a PBIS program. And from the Gay Street Methodist Church, $1,000 for students' needs and PBIS program.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And that's all I have.
I would entertain a motion for fiscal services.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Any questions or comments? Thank you to the PTO and Gay Street for those very generous, and Owens Corning, very generous donations to Pleasant Street. I'm sure Mrs. Weaver greatly appreciates those.
Absolutely.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes. Motion carried. Business services, Ms. Regola-Dye?
Thank you. First, just as a review, HB 147 refers to school employee misconduct, autism scholarships, interscholastic athletics at a different school, and ticket pricing at athletic events. This is a bill that was also signed by the governor. And as a review, the Ohio legislature did pass 29 bills in one day in June.
More than they did all year.
SB 168 is the one that has the greatest impact upon the education community. And just some highlights from that bill. A district that receives 5 stars on the state report card is exempt from certain statutory requirements, such as teacher licensing and other topics. Some districts may develop their own, districts may develop their own teacher evaluation framework. The Department of Education Workforce, or DO, will establish a 5-year school turnaround pilot program for low-performing districts. And let's see, I can't read my own writing. It permits an exemplary community sponsor to sponsor up to 200 community schools. It requires program participants to report data to the Department of Education Workforce as prescribed by that department. And that is the one concern I know that many superintendents are expressing about that data requirement. But I also included the Senate bill itself so that you could review those items at your leisure. Any questions or comments?
There's 123 pages. If you have extra time,
Or you could go to the supplement from OSBA.
I'm going to cut through it. The Spark Notes, yeah.
Lot.
Thank you.
We have a number of items for your approval tonight in this section. First are a number of facility use requests, some that have been added at the beginning of our agenda. Knox County Special Olympics, All Out Sports Club, and the AC Twirlers will be using different buildings. Looks predominantly Twin Oak and Columbia here in this situation. The district will like to enter into a contract with David Connolly of Rockmill Financial, especially as we really work towards a tax policy for the district and how we kind of manage those things. And should our facility planning process lead us towards renovations or new buildings, he would certainly be able to participate in that. Finally, number 3 is Advanced Mechanical Plus. We're entering into a preventative maintenance agreement contract with them. They'll go to all of our kitchens twice a year to do PM work. And then we also have now on-call rates to give them a call should we have equipment that goes down. Before, it seemed like we were piecemealing this stuff together and calling a variety of different people. We wanted to have a contract that we could get some immediate kind of feedback from. So those 3 items for your approval.
I would entertain a motion for business services as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Any questions? Comments?
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes. Okay, motion carried. Student services, no items for information.
We have one item for board approval tonight. It's working with North Central ESC to provide audiology services for some of our district impaired students. Finding someone on staff to do that kind of specific work is always, we just don't have enough to hire someone ourselves, so we work through consortia like North Central ESC for that service.
I would entertain a motion for student services.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. Any questions? Would you call the roll?
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Dr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye,
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes. Motion carried. On to personnel certificated.
Just 2 items for information. They're salary adjustments. One's a supplemental contract and one's a teaching contract. Under items for board approval tonight, we have the general litany of employment items that we always have. We do have a couple retirements. And again, when we talk about retirements, it's always a little bittersweet because they're folks that have been around for a long time and we know them well. And so in this case, Mike Fuller and Dawn Porter have both turned in their resignations during this first half of the year. And obviously, we're looking forward to retirement, but it gives us a chance to really kind of hone in on what we need to be looking for. And so we'll talk more about those folks as we get towards the end of the year, but appreciate their willingness to share that early. Substitute teacher contracts, supplemental contracts, you see those listed there. We did add one to a professional committee, our district leadership team. Stipend for our neurosequential model, number of volunteers. This fella in the back of the room got roped into coaching for another year. I don't know that he'll ever give up. And I think the kids probably wouldn't want him to either, but
No.
we got him for another year. And then we have a couple laypersons for pupil activity contracts for wrestling. Predominantly here in this section, and you can see those names there. There's our 50-50 that makes for one. Those items for your approval tonight.
I entertain a motion for the certificated personnel.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola Dye.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say thank you to the district leadership team and everyone that works with that committee. They do so much. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Kathy and Eric, really helped kind of lead that group. And I know we're doing a lot of subcommittee work as well as regular meeting kind of work. And so I want to thank them for helping lead that group.
And thank you, John, for a yes. All right, would you call the roll?
Ms. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes. Motion carried. All right, moving on to our classified staff.
We have no items for information tonight, number of items for board approval. We have some employment contracts, and I know we always see a lot of these, and we don't always hire this many people every month of every year, but employment contracts on the OPSI side or the classified side come up at their year mark. And so that's why you always see them coming up. So we have some appointments there, a number of 2-year contracts in their second, third sequence, and then a couple 2-year contracts in their fourth and fifth sequence. We're always in need of good subs, and so we're pulling in some substitute teachers, and then also some supplemental contracts for our insurance committee. Those items for your approval tonight.
I have to entertain a motion for the classified staff.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola Dye.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, would you call the roll?
Ms. Regola Dye?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes. Okay, motion carried. Okay. We will move on in time now for board member comments. Mr. Workman, would you like to start tonight?
Just like to, yeah.
First.
Just like to thank everybody for coming or listening in. And I wanted to comment on Corey's presentation. I enjoyed that. I read that book, Above the Line, some time ago, and I'm going back and reading it again. There were so many things that when you were speaking about with staff, students, personal life, really resonated, and I'm definitely going to go back and revisit that a lot. So, but moving through the year, and no news is good news sometimes, and so glad to hear that the year is going well, and looking forward to continuing of that.
Mr. Ward.
Okay. I too would like to thank Corey and his team for tonight's presentation. It's inspirational to try to kind of build that within the adults so that you can then look at the kids. It's admirable, so thank you for taking that on. I also wanted to thank our community members that have participated in the facility planning piece. That's so important. Thanks to Bill for leading it. Thanks to Jody and Tim for being involved in that process too. That's one of those that will have generational effects, maybe. And so I really thank our community members in this group for taking that on. And finally, love the idea about the all kids bike thing with our PE teachers. I don't know where I would have been without my bike growing up. So to see that and how culture has changed and all, now they're spending their time on screens versus running around. I'm glad to see that actually take place. That could be a real benefit to a lot of kids for a long time.
I do have a question for you relating to your bike. This will determine your age, I suppose, but did you ever take paper clips and put deck of cards in there? And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that was the thing right there.
Until I found out they might be valuable and I stopped doing it.
Absolutely. Ms. Regola, yes.
First of all, thank you to the people who came this evening and those who may be watching at home. I'm still overwhelmed with what our school system offers to the children and to the community, because it takes both and to make it work and to be successful. And I'd also like to just say thank you to our wonderful music department at the high school. The music they're producing is unbelievable. And I'm just so proud to be a part of it, to be a graduate of Mount Vernon City Schools and now board member. But thank you to the community for everything they do to support us. That's it. Thank you.
I don't think anything's left. I wrote it. Wrote some things down, but I'd like to thank the high school also for what they're doing, not just because of the presentation, but just the fact that you care enough to want to make it better. And I think that's really important. And the fact that we did so well on our report card, I know that's because we have administrators and teachers that are just going above and beyond. And I'm just very proud of our district. I also had down the facility committee and the community donations and the bikes, but that's already been mentioned. So I'll just thank everyone for being here this evening and just watching, and hope everyone has a good week. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
I will kind of shift a little bit because I forgot to mention to Bill, I did sit in on an OHSAA, OSBA Zoom call last Thursday, I think it was. Very good, talking about their finances of the OHSAA. Their goal is to have 9 months as their rainy day fund, and they're at 8.9 months, so fiscally they're doing very well there. They have 4 continuous years of operating with a profit, so that is good news for them. They are continuing to look at divisional alignment with the boys and girls teams as they move forward. The interesting thing was they were talking about, all right, Mr. Coughlin, here we go, flag football with girls. It would be a 7-on-7 versus 11-on-11. Currently, the state of Georgia has 500 flag football teams across the high schools. He said, I think it was northeast, it's either northeast or northwest. I'm challenged right now on that piece of it, but they have approximately 70 teams up in the northern area, so they're trying to get it down further into central Ohio. So I think that potentially could be the next sport. It's only a 3 to 4 week sport. It's in March and April, so we'll see how that rolls out. I know, it's tough. That's what I said, softball, track, eek, that's a lot, but I thought it was very interesting. He said it's a big push from the NFL for equality for the girls. It is, one more opportunity for our girls.
I bet they don't monetize it at all.
Can't be motivated.
So that was pretty good. Let's see, again, talking about the shift in overall behavior at events. They're seeing a shift finally, and they just encourage schools to continue to monitor that, really come down hard on it, and just for the safety of our fans, our players, our athletes, and providing that positive environment for our fans. They talked a little bit about legislative, HB 147 in terms of ticket pricing, so nothing really new there. The one part of House Bill 47 is the AEDs, requiring all schools to have AEDs in all athletic facilities readily at hand. So that's something I know we have them, but I don't know how readily available at the stadium, at the field house, at the high school, at the middle school. So just making sure we have ample and those are up to date. So always looking for new officials. Looking for officials and how they can align that to potential classes in the school system, so. So that was the report from OSB, and I apologize for not telling you earlier to put it on the agenda, so
Appreciate that.
I'll use this opportunity to do that. So other than that, it has been a great year. I know we're winding down, hard to believe, on our fall activities. I know there's been lots of really good choral programs that have been going on, so as you said, lots of things for our kids, opportunities for our kids to be involved in, and it's exciting. So that's all I have. Bill or Judy, anything?
No, ma'am.
Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And call the roll.
Ms. Regola-Dye?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Workman?
Yes.
Dr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann?
Yes. Motion carried. We are adjourned.
Thank you.